Estamos a punto de empezar. Natalie, has llegado precisa con el tiempo. Estamos literalmente a punto de arrancar. Les damos la bienvenida a todos y todas a este evento más de Colectivo 23. Yo soy Alejandra Dancuart, soy Product Owner en Colectivo 23 y hoy estaré de host en este evento. Junto con el team está por aquí Maffer, que va a estar compartiendo links y respondiendo preguntas en el chat para cualquier cosita. Y tenemos a nuestro super speaker que lo voy a presentar en unos minutos más. Así que muy a lo colectivo, way, y como nos encanta a nosotros, puntito en el chat, por favor, si nos escuchan fuerte y claro por aquí. A ver esos puntitos. Muchas gracias a todos y todas. He visto también que han ido compartiendo de qué países son y qué es lo que hacen, así que los invito a que sigan compartiendo. De hecho, este es un espacio para networking también. Muchas veces conocemos a personas en los chats de Zoom, lo que los chats de Zoom no nos cuentan, y es algo muy divertido porque ahí todos conectamos por LinkedIn también, así que súper. De hecho, este chat también y el Zoom se queda grabado y lo vamos a compartir después. Para todos los que nos preguntan también si es que hay alguien que no pudo venir el día de hoy, o si quieren volver a ver esta grabación, no hay ningún problema. Maffer se va a encargar de que todos tengan esta grabación. Así que sin más, ¿por qué estamos aquí el día de hoy? Les voy a contar. Primero porque vamos a conectar con todo el talento LATAM. Estamos demasiado felices que en Colectivo 23 estamos en todos los países de Latinoamérica. De hecho, tenemos pasajeros y pasajeras de todos los países, y eso nos pone muy felices. Bueno, la otra razón por la cual estamos aquí es porque vamos a conocer a talentos de IDEO, que es nuestra organización aliada con la que tenemos un partnership en una de nuestras rutas, y vamos a conocer a una persona muy especial, que es uno de nuestros Inspiration Shots. Ahora les cuento de qué se trata esto, que se llama Piotr Kuklo. No sé si lo pronuncié muy bien, pero él me contó que si no podemos pronunciar su nombre, podemos decirle Piotr, así como Harry Potter, y que eso es un poco más fácil para nosotros también. La tercera parte dentro de nuestra agenda es que vamos a empezar la charla o Inspiration Shot, y en la parte número 4 vamos a tener un Q&A donde van a poder dejar todas sus preguntas para que Piotr las pueda responder. Voy a actuar de moderadora, ahora les cuento cómo funciona la dinámica, así que si tienen cualquier pregunta con respecto a la charla, por favor la pueden dejar en el chat y vamos a tratar de responderlas todas. Sabemos que a veces el tiempo es un poco limitado, pero no se preocupen que las preguntas que queden no respondidas no las llevamos para luego tratar de responderlas y se las mandamos en el mail que viene después del evento. Y por último, les vamos a presentar algunos de nuestros programas especializados que tenemos en Colectivo 23. De hecho, el tema de hoy, Storytelling, por el cual muchos se han apuntado en este evento, tiene un módulo en todas nuestras rutas, porque el Storytelling es transversal a todos nuestros programas de aprendizaje. Y por último tenemos nuestra gran foto grupal, así que tienen tiempo para, si quieren prender la cámara todo el evento pueden hacerlo, o si quieren prenderla al final y nos peinamos, también todo muy bien. Así que vamos a empezar con una pequeña presentación de Colectivo 23. Y de hecho, antes de dar esta parte, sí me gustaría saber, solo porque hay muchas personas en este evento, puntito en el chat si es la primera vez que vienen a un evento gratuito de Colectivo 23. Me interesaría saber. Ajá. Tenemos algunas personas, Esteban, Cristian, Pierina, Paulina. ¡Uy! Vuelan los puntitos. Ok, tenemos varias personas que es la primera vez. Les damos la bienvenida. Y para todas las personas que ya han estado aquí y conocen nuestros eventos, bienvenidos y bienvenidas nuevamente. Felices de que siempre vuelvan. Entonces, en Colectivo 23, ¿qué estamos haciendo? ¿Qué hacemos? ¿Qué cosa es? Estamos formando a esta generación de talento digital en América Latina, o sea, ustedes, y bueno, nosotros también, que nos formamos también dentro de Colectivo 23, y lo hacemos con una visión global. ¿Qué significa eso? Global, local, que aprendemos del mundo, porque tenemos a profesionales expertos de todo el mundo, pero aplicamos a modo Latinoamérica, con casos que están siendo relevantes y al día con lo que está pasando hoy en Latinoamérica. Entonces tenemos sesiones virtuales, son cursos de aprendizaje y rutas de aprendizaje, 100% en vivo, así como lo que estamos haciendo en este momento, en el Zoom, y no dejamos tarea, porque somos muy cool y no nos gusta dejar tarea, entonces todo se resuelve en la sesión. Siempre dejamos recursos adicionales y ejercicios que pueden hacer fuera de la sesión, pero todo queda durante, porque sabemos que ustedes, profesionales, tienen muchas cosas que hacer todo el día, entonces no queremos que se lleven cosas extra para hacer fuera de las sesiones. Y también van a aprender de profesionales que enseñan lo que ejercen. Son personas, como ustedes también, profesionales, que están en el campo, que todo el día están en la cancha, resolviendo, viviendo experiencias, generando historias, y van a venir a contar esas historias y descubrirlas y descifrarlas y compartirlas con ustedes para que haya un debate y una sesión de casuística dentro de las sesiones. Además, van a poder aplicar todo lo aprendido en los programas, porque nuestra metodología de enseñanza, la famosa Colectivo Way, que varios ya seguramente conocen, es 75% práctica, 25% teoría / reflexión, donde lo que queremos es que lo que aprenden lo apliquen en ese momento, con ejercicios y actividades, y además que se lo puedan llevar y lo puedan usar al día siguiente en sus trabajos, en sus proyectos, en sus emprendimientos, ¿no? Y que de paso regresen a la siguiente sesión y nos cuenten qué tal les fue, ¿no? Y podamos tener ahí un círculo de feedback muy bacán, muy bueno. Y por último, que es la parte que creo que más me gusta a mí, es que serás parte de una comunidad de talento digital, porque nosotros, una vez que terminamos los cursos y rutas, ustedes son, bueno, pasajeros y pasajeras de este aprendizaje en nuestro colectivo, que el colectivo es un bus, literal, un autobús de aprendizaje, se quedan dentro de la comunidad, ¿no? La manera más tangible que tenemos para contarles cómo se quedan es que tenemos un Slack de pasajeros y pasajeras, pero de maneras más intangibles es que generamos estas conexiones que luego nos sirven para nuestra vida profesional, para generar contactos, para generar el famoso networking, y de hecho también nos sirve no solo para eso, sino, por ejemplo, para los que, si alguno por aquí está en temas de investigación, cuando queremos conseguir usuarios para entrevistas, tenemos una gran comunidad de personas que están súper abiertas a participar en las entrevistas, o si ustedes también quieren postear o poner un puesto de trabajo para alguien en su equipo, pueden reclutarlo a través de Colectivo 23, o al revés, pueden postular a trabajos a través de Colectivo 23, ¿no? El tema de empleabilidad también es súper importante con nosotros y nosotras. ¿Qué más? Bueno, nos mueve impactar en las personas, como ya les comentamos, estamos aquí en realidad por ustedes, ustedes son nuestros usuarios y usuarias, y datos importantes porque también nos encanta la data, nuestra CEO, Cristina Elías, siempre nos promueve que todo lo que hagamos siempre tenemos que tenerlo con un poco de datos para poder saber hacia dónde vamos y qué hacemos. Y les contamos que el 50% de nuestros pasajeros y pasajeras cambian de rol o logran ascender después de 3 meses que llevan nuestras rutas o cursos. De hecho, las historias son muy bonitas porque siempre vienen a contarnos, obviamente, en qué andan. Y muchas veces también nos ha pasado que después de las rutas, hasta algunos pasajeros se juntan y forman un emprendimiento, o se conocen dentro de sus trabajos, o se mueven de roles porque otros pasajeros están buscando a alguien para sus trabajos, así que también es algo bien bonito dentro de la comunidad. Otro dato importante y que nos mueve muchísimo es que tenemos un 70% de NPS promedio, y el NPS de hecho es qué tanto nos recomiendan a otras personas. Entonces, 70% es un número bastante alto, así que muchas gracias para los que han llevado cursos y rutas en colectivo, porque sabemos que nos recomiendan y eso nos sirve también a nosotros para seguir mejorando cada día. Y finalmente tenemos hoy en día, y este dato yo no me lo sabía, Mafram nos los pasó antes de empezar esta sesión, más de 70 alianzas educativas con empresas. Entonces, como les decía, este tema de empleabilidad y también de crecimiento profesional es algo que valoramos mucho y que sabemos que a ustedes también les importa bastante. Entonces tenemos hasta empresas que generan grupos de aprendizaje y quieren mandar a sus colaboradores a que estudien en Colectivo 23, todos juntos, y tenemos varios programas de esa manera también. Así que si por ahí conocen también a alguien que quiera esta forma, este formato, nos cuenta también por el chat, y nosotros ahí atentos y atentas. Otro dato importante, y que también es muy cool, es que tenemos más de 8.000 profesionales que han sido formados alrededor de toda Latinoamérica en Colectivo 23. Nuestra comunidad empezó con un cohort de menos de 30 personas hace un par de años, y hoy estamos demasiado felices que ya somos más de 8.000. Ahí Maffer es una de las personas que estaba antes, cuando era hasta presencial en algún momento, ¿no? Y ahora pensar que somos más de 8.000 es impresionante. Así que muchas gracias nuevamente a ustedes también por eso. Ahora pasando un poco más a cómo va a funcionar la logística de este evento, porque sé que no me quieren escuchar a mí, sino a Piotr. Les cuento que van a poder disfrutar de este evento internacional. De hecho, Piotr habla inglés, Pero no se preocupen, si quieren escucharlo en inglés, pueden hacer clic en el mundito que tienen abajo en el Zoom que dice interpretación, o si su Zoom está en inglés, va a decir interpretation. Le hacen clic a ese mundito y les van a salir 3 opciones. Esas 3 opciones son off o original audio o audio original, que es para escuchar la versión inglés-castellano como sale. O sea, si yo estoy hablando ahorita en castellano, es en castellano, y si es en inglés, es en inglés. Si apretan inglés, van a poder escuchar la traducción en inglés, y si apretan español, van a poder escuchar la traducción en español. Entonces, también pueden jugar, ir viendo también cuál quieren, un ratito en inglés, un ratito en castellano. Ahí se los dejo para que vayan viendo. Vamos a hacer una prueba en un ratito para ver que todo funciona. Y también, para que disfruten mejor de este evento y puedan ver a Piotr en pantalla completa, pueden poner arriba, arriba a la derecha, donde dice vista o view, pueden poner la opción que dice hablante o speaker, y de esa manera van a poder ver a la persona en ese momento en pantalla completa. Piotr, si me estás escuchando con la traducción, las personas te van a ver de este tamaño, más o menos, así que va a ser súper famoso. Y creo que con eso estamos. Veo que, Gisela, nos has hecho una pregunta sobre la red de empresas. No te preocupes, me estoy llevando la pregunta y ahí con Maffer te respondemos en un ratito. Entonces, antes de empezar, nos encantaría verlos y verlas. Sabemos que es tarde para varios y varias, pero si quieren poner su cámara prendida, nos da un poco más de conexión humana. No les voy a decir préndanla, pero si quieren hacerlo, es bien bonito, y ahorita veo varias caras. Tengo en mi pantalla uno a Sami y a Cri, así que hola, ustedes son las caras que estoy mirando ahorita. Lo otro es que pueden escribir en el chat en cualquier momento y los vamos a estar leyendo. Si no les respondemos en ese instante es porque justo estamos viendo temas logísticos, pero estamos viendo todo el chat y todas sus preguntas en todo momento, así que no se preocupen que van a ser respondidas sus preguntas. Lo otro es que disfruten de este espacio. Si ya están aquí con nosotros, o de repente están comiendo, terminando un pedazo del trabajo, en fin, estaban en Instagram o en WhatsApp hace un ratito, desconecten y sírvanse aquí una canchita y vamos a ver el show, un popcorn. Y finalmente, que los queremos conocer, y a veces entran las personas con iPhone, y entran muchos iPhones o Androids y no sabemos sus nombres. Entonces, para darle un poco más de humanidad también, si quieren cambiar sus nombres en Zoom, para que digan sus nombres, buenísimo, porque de ahí también nos sirve a nosotros para conectar con ustedes. Y entonces nos vamos a romper el hielo. No se preocupen, no les voy a hacer bailar, porque sé que somos un montón en el Zoom, pero les voy a hacer una pregunta para agilizar el chat. Un poco para calentar motores de creatividad. Si ustedes tienen una taza, viendo una taza aquí, ¿no? Una tacita, ¿qué accesorio le agregarían a la taza? Y los vamos a leer en el chat. Y yo voy a ir leyendo ahí qué se les ocurre, qué le agregarían a una taza si pudieran agregarle. Así, piensen totalmente disparatados. Un calentador USB, una crayola, uy, me gusta ese, un llavero, un posavasos. Por ahí, uy, Juan dice una base para mantener el calor, eso me encanta. Un suéter tejido que abría la taza, ay, me encanta. Piotr dice por ahí, un refil constante, me encanta, Piotr, muchas gracias, yo también apoyo esa. Un sorbete, me dicen por ahí. Lali para poner un lapicero, oye, esa está buena, siempre necesito un lapicero y nunca sé dónde está. Gisela dice un moño, por ahí, a ver, uy, sale muy rápido el chat. Christopher, algo que abrigue mi mano, un abrigo para sostener la taza caliente, un sistema que haga espuma en la taza, ay, me muero, me encanta la creatividad. Una Alexa, ¿se imaginan una taza que venga con una Alexa? Eso estaría increíble. Y que la Alexa te sirva el café, y el constant refill venga con ya implementado, ¿no? Unos parlantes, un antidesestresante, excelente. Muchas gracias a todos y todas. Este ha sido el chat de respuestas, creo que más veloz que hemos tenido en este mes, ¿no, Mafer? Perfecto. Y entonces ahora, sin más, voy a pasar a presentar a nuestro querido Piotr. Voy a hablar entre inglés y castellano, esto va a sonar un poco raro, es como Spanglish, pero este es el momento para probar que todo funciona. Entonces, voy a cambiar a inglés y ustedes me cuentan si están escuchando en castellano los que tienen interpretación en castellano, por favor. Esto es totalmente en vivo, esto se llama evento en vivo, a ver, probemos. Entonces, hello everyone. I'm going to try that it's working. I'm speaking in English right now, and if you are listening in Spanish, please tell me if you are listening myself in Spanish with the translator. It works. Laura says it works. Nico as well. Perfect. So we are good to go. So I'm going to present our speaker today. It's Piotr Kuklo. He is an interaction design lead in IDEO China. He is actually in China right now. And it's morning. So should I say good morning, Piotr? How are you today?
Yes, it's good morning. I'm really well. Just trying to warm up for you to be as fresh as possible.
Amazing. Okay, so just to do a very brief introduction on Piotr, but then I'm gonna just drop the mic for you. He has more than 15 years of experience in the design and innovation world, and he has led design teams and research teams with projects that are very innovative using design thinking. And we always love in Colectivo to ask everyone a fun fact. We are ridiculously encouraged to ask this question all the time in the rutas as well. So Piotr, what's your fun fact today?
It's really hard to answer, but I'm just going to go with the fear of height. I'm scared of height, panic. I'm getting super sweaty. My legs are shaking. I don't have that on the plane. I think it's just the proximity of the empty space, and I think that's one of the scariest things for me.
Oh my God. If you want to drop into the chat, if anyone else is also scared of heights, please, we can join a team here of the Colectivo people scared of heights support system. Yeah, Gabby too is scared of heights. So right now I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to give you the mic to you, Piotr. If you have some slides, I think you can start sharing. Tell us.
Yes, I do.
And the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ale. Let me just try to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Perfect. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Let me just try to make it bigger. Okay. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Let me just move the chat around. Okay, I'm ready. So hello, everyone. Thank you, Ale, for the introduction. My name is Piotr. I'm interaction design lead at IDEO Shanghai. Before joining IDEO Shanghai, I was working at IDEO Palo Alto in San Francisco. So working on a lot of projects for the tech companies in the Bay in California. And my work is generally focused on the strategy for the digital products. So we are helping our clients to find what is new, what is the innovative thing that they can do, and how they can help their customers and user, to have the better lives and help them to grow. And I'm going to be talking about the storytelling. And maybe worth to mention before that is that my background is in engineering. I finished my computer studies some time ago, and throughout that time, I was doing the transition to the design. And I think the big stereotype about the engineers that they are not the best in communicating. They're more focused on building stuff. So actually, for me, entering the design world was a really interesting. The beginnings were really interesting when I started to realizing how the communication and how the storytelling is actually important. And I noticed my gaps in that space. So I spent a lot of time on trying to get better at it. Which I think it's a journey for all of us. And as I mentioned, the designers tell the stories, right? Especially when the designers grow with the seniority, the designers' communication skills are becoming more and more important. So we can argue about the proportion, but let's just say that 80% at a certain point, 80% of our job is about communicating. We have to explain our process. We have to explain our rationale, our solution, help build the alignment between the different stakeholders. And we are using the communication to convince them, to give them the confidence that we are doing the right thing, that we are on the right track. So how good you communicate your design and tell it to others is as much important as the design itself. And the storytelling is basically the part of that communication, right? This is the moment when we are sharing a little longer format, right, through the stories. And this is the way we can make a really great impact. So that's why the designers, we put so much efforts and energy into getting better at telling the stories. But why the stories are important? So, if you look in the past, actually, stories help us to define the social norms and pass the knowledge from generation to generation. So the previous generation was building the knowledge, and thanks to the stories, they were passing that to the next generation. This is actually what makes us humans. We are really, by evolution, we are really sensitive to hearing the stories, and we kind of naturally can understand what are the good stories, what are the bad stories, right? And if we look at, especially at the kids, how they're approaching books, right? It's really visible when we are seeing the kids reading books, right? They learn from books about what is good, what is bad. They learn about the compassion, they build their empathy. Probably if we will tell them directly, like, hey, you should be a good person, they will not be able to grasp it, right? It's such a blurred thing. But when we had tell them that through the story, they're actually able to connect that and figure out that by themselves. But actually, no matter how old we are, we always crave for the stories. We unconsciously know what this good story is. We have this storyteller gene in all of us. Some of us are better at it. They have the natural skills of telling the stories. Some of us are not, are a little worse. But basically, we tell the stories every day. So we do it at the dining table. When we are talking with friends, during the coffee chat, and of course, when we are communicating at work. But somehow, those casual stories are having different purpose, right? They are more focused on surprising our audience, on making them shocked, making them laugh, right? And they somehow come easier to us. The problem comes when we are moving to those professional stories, right? The one that we hear at work, and we just, we are kind of waiting for this moment. With a fear of 2 hours of PowerPoints, and it really makes us sick. It's 1 p.m. after lunch. We just had a big lunch. We didn't have a coffee, and we to go through the content of a lot of bullet points, a lot of charts, and somehow we lost the speaker after 10 minutes. So how we could make that, how we can go from the PowerPoint to something that captivates the audience. And the way I look at it, and talking with other designers, is that those professional presentations over focus on the information, right? Like, we want to share as much as possible. Sometimes maybe that information is not really relevant to our audience, but the beauty of storytelling comes from using the combination of those two, of information and emotions, right? So information is a way we get to the brain, but the emotions are the things that are getting to the heart, right? Like, emotions convince the heart. They encourage the type of the belief, the type of the change we would like to see in our audience, right? So only through that combination we are able to achieve our goal. And this presentation mainly going to focus on that aspect, how we can actually bring those emotions to life. And as I was mentioning, maybe I'm not the expert, and I'm still learning. But I'm able to notice how other people are doing that. So throughout this share, I would like to show you a couple of examples how those storytellers bring emotions to their audience. What is so special about the ways they are building the stories that we actually get sucked into them, and we are really craving for more. To make it a little more tangible, I will be giving you a couple of examples from movies or TV shows. They're really great examples of stories. The movies works on emotions. They're pretty straightforward. And my apologies if the movies that I'm going to be showing you watch or you didn't. I'm try to not spoil anything. But I choose the ones that I think a lot of people see. So that's going to be easier for us to have a conversation. So the first example is maybe not about a particular movie, but a story from my home. So I recently get obsessed with watching a lot of documentaries around the sports, and my wife actually hates sports documentaries. She's really fascinated by all of the serial killers, murder drama, the suspense of it and the revealing of the truth. And we cannot really agree. We cannot really watch those stuff together. And something that is really, really interesting is that, like, they definitely target the different audience. And I would even claim that the storytellers in those different shows, they really know how to captivate the audience, and they are not trying to please everyone. They are actually really specific. They understand the audience really well, and you can really see that in many of the stories. is it sports documentary? Is it a murder documentary? They're really knowing what people are craving to hear. And this is the advice for us, right? Like, we need to understand the audience to make them interested. I think this sounds maybe, you know, a little shallow, but to be honest, that's the biggest, the most important thing when we are thinking about telling the story to others, right? This is the moment when we are bringing the empathy, and we need to have the empathy to our audience, to appreciate their needs, to serve them the story that they are actually interested in, right? So we have to think about the questions. What we need to start to think about what audience would like to hear, right? What they care about, what do they know, what they don't know, what do they want to learn from our presentation, what type of mindset they are coming to the meeting, and how we would like to change that mindset. In many cases, our stories, you know, maybe they're going to be talking about the same thing, but because they have a different audiences, they probably have a little different angle on it. Sometimes we're going to be telling stories to acquire new users. Sometimes we're going to be telling a story to acquire new talent to our team, or maybe to raise the funds, right? And I believe that those stories should be different. You know, they should talk about different things and tackle different challenges, right? So if we look at one of the examples, like, you know, the way you're going to present to your teammate going to be really different the way you present to your investor. Your teammate is more interested in, you know, how far the team progressed. Do I believe in the problem they are solving, and what role could I play in this project? But investor is coming to the meeting with a really different mindset, right? Does the team understand the need they are addressing? Is their solution clearly articulated? Do they have evidence that the customers will value the experience? And at the end, what is about the future? Is there a roadmap on how we are moving forward? So you can clearly see that those audiences, they look for different things. And if we really want to captivate them, we need to prepare the content that is really directed to their needs. So this is the first point. The second point about how storytellers brings emotions, that they build their stories around their characters, right? And characters are the crucial part of the story. You know, if we are looking at the Titanic movie, this is the shot from the Titanic movie. If the Titanic story was told through the eyes of all of the passengers, hundreds of people, right? We will never build a relationship with those characters. Movies usually choose a couple of characters. Maybe it's a couple, maybe it's one hero, but this gives us enough time to build the relationship with the character. What is really important that we start to caring about those characters. We are interested in them. So the good stories have characters, the characters that we understand. We get the rationale, why they are making a certain decisions, and the ones that we're going to cheer when they struggle, when they have problem and conflict. You know, we still are thinking after those many years, like, why Jack didn't went up on that door, right? But like, I think this is the reason that, you know, the story was so realistic, and we get so passionate about it that we were screaming to the screen, just get on this door, like you can actually be there. But yeah, that's another story, you know, like that was the director choice, right? But what is the advice for us? We need to put our user or customer in the center. We need to tell about who they are, how their life looks like, what they care about, what they aspire to become in life and be in life, right? So I wanted to give you like one quick example. When we're doing a project for a skincare device client, we actually develop 3 characters that help us to explain the solution. 3 of them have a different approach to their skincare. They have different skin routines. They have different skin problems and also different aspirations regarding their skin. But the way we approach building those characters was that we actually based that on learning from the research. So all of 3 of them were actually a combination of different stories that we heard from our users the moment when we were running the research. So the research helped us to build those characters, and that's why they are so convincing. And when we are presenting, actually, you know, we heard a lot of nodding from our client that, okay, we get this. This is really believable story, and then we can walk them through how our solution is helping them. Which is moving to my third example about storytellers put characters into a conflict and end a conflict with a resolution. So here I wanted to use the example from Lion King. I watched that movie when I was really young, and it really was really powerful experience for me. And I think for many reasons that this movie beautifully drive us to the change in the main character, right? So we are learning about the Simba, and we learn about his life struggles. We learn a lot about how he was traumatized as a small lion, and then how he was evolving himself to become this stress-free. And at a certain point, we meet the conflict, right? Simba is faced by the conflict of, would like to go with the free, stress-free life, or should I actually be responsible and help others, right? And this is his conflict, and we really understand why he is facing by that because of his history. And then at the end, we see the resolution. We see the final transformation of the character with the happy ending. And in this case, this whole beautiful metaphor of the circle of life, right? So what is the advice for us here? We have to introduce the conflict. The conflict is this really special thing, right? Like conflict in life, it's actually, we try to have it as least as possible, right? Like it has a negative connotation, but actually, the beauty of the conflict in the story is that it's becoming interesting. If you think about it, every movie, every story has a conflict, right? This is what actually is interesting for the audience. We are curious about how the things are solved. What are the steps that will transform the characters, and how that conflict makes them change? Which is exactly the resolution, right? Like we have to tell how our solution helps the users on practical, but also on the emotional level, right? Like we cannot only focus on the practical aspect of it. We need to think a little more about how they actually character and persona change thanks to our solution. So here I wanted to give you a really quick example. That's a project that we did for a pet health service, and here we had two main characters: a Piper, a dog, and a Matt, the dog owner. So Matt is actually is an unexperienced dog owner, and Piper is his first dog. So Matt is really anxious about Piper's health, right? It's he doesn't really know how to approach certain problems. He doesn't know how to reach out to the good quality of doctors. And it's really sensitive about what I should do at the right time, what is the right thing to do here. So our conflict here was, we were telling the story around the sickness of the dog, right? Like at the beginning of the story, we basically make unfortunately Piper vomit and have a big problem with the stomach, right? And we tell about how that conflict affects both Piper, but also Matt, right? Like how anxious he is, how he doesn't know what to do in that moment, and how much it affects his confidence. And then throughout the remaining, the main part of the share, we were saying how our solution is helping him to not only solve the problem, but at the same time build the confidence and find the comfort that he knows how to solve the problem in the future. So then in that case, he will be able to react properly. So those are three really important aspects, right? We had understanding of the audience, we had building the characters, and then we had the conflict and the resolution, right? But then the last kind of like the masterpiece of it is the last piece, which is that storytellers guide the audience by connecting the events. This is really critical, right? If the story is not connected and it's built in a cohesive way, we're actually going to use our audience, right? And here I wanted to give you the example from Forrest Gump. I was recently rewatching that movie, and I was just like, maybe I became more sensitive to it, but I really love the way they build the story. So the Forrest Gump we are seeing him when he goes through his life with many adventures, and those adventures are really separated by time, and they are really in a different context. But what makes the movie so connected and cohesive is actually those scenes at the bench, right? The ones that they are breaking those story of his life, and we are having the thing that we understand what is happening, and we are preparing and getting ready for the next chapter, right? Because we know that the next chapter is going to come. So this is a little, maybe this is like not a direct connection of the events, but I find that really beautiful way of actually connecting the things. So advice for us is that we have to show our how our rationale connects to the previous points, right? Like this is really important. We have to guide our audience through the story, help them to connect the certain points or make them connect themselves. You know, usually in movies, we are actually really excited about the moments when we are connecting things by ourselves and we are the directors and storytellers are playing on unspoken things. But in the professional context, we really need to emphasize on the connecting the things by ourselves just to help our audience. You know, we never know how, you know, how fresh they are, how busy they are. We need to help them a little to connect the things. So let's look at this at the kind of like hypothetical story, right? Like we have research learnings, which is the moment when we are introducing our characters. We have our design challenge, which is the moment when we have our characters conflict. Maybe there is our product, which is the solution that we are telling through the characters' eyes. And then we finish with the impact and benefits, like what is the character resolution? What is the positive impact? How we change their behavior and how we help them in the end. So, you know, in many ways, it's really important to make that story linear, right? But at the same time, all of the aspects that we are talking about needs to go back to the certain points, right? I believe that this is something that it's easy to tell, but it's much harder to execute in practice. But I think when we are coming with this mindset, it immediately helps us to build our story a little better and connect it a little more powerfully. So actually here, I wanted to also tell you, you know, how the story from Forrest Gump looked like. If we would like to copy that way of telling the stories, like we're just going to use an anchor, all right? Maybe it's a visual anchor, maybe it's a break anchor, right? But this is the way we could use for the kind of like being inspired by the Forrest Gump. Yes, so as a summary, you know, critical things that I think are most important: knowing your audience and building the empathy, understanding what they are craving for and what they are interested in hearing, building our characters, the one that they're going to be driving the story. We need to tell who they are, what they do, what they aspire to become. Conflict and resolution. So what is the challenge that they are facing and how we are able to help them and how that change affects them. And then, of course, connecting all of that into the story that it's digestible and easy to understand. So just you know, we still have a couple of minutes. So I just wanted to tell you how I do this, because sometimes I have a feeling that we are touching just the surface, but I really wanted to get tangible. So it's not going to be the only way, and this is like the ideal way of doing things. I just wanted to share with you how I'm and my teams are doing that in order to, you know, craft our stories. So actually, we never start telling the story on the slides. Like we stop using slides as our starting point. We actually open a document, like in this case, Google Docs, right? And we sit together and we talk about basically different things, right? Oh, there is a typo, but I mean our audience, right? We start with our audience. Who are they? What do they care about? What are the shifts that we expect them to have after? Like, what is the mindset that are coming into the meeting, and what is the mindset that we like them to leave the meeting, right? And then is the key message. I didn't really mention that, but I think this is a really important exercise to run as a team. You know, what is your key message in one sentence? How you can really distill the most important thing you're going to be sharing, and then use that key message to develop one paragraph of the text. And when we are ready with that, when we understand the audience, when we are aligned all together on our key message, we are start to moving to building the first structure of the story, right? So just to giving you the really same example as I was showing before, like, you know, starting with the learnings, challenge, solution, implications, you can think about those elements as the chapters, right? Starting with the chapters, title of the chapters, before diving deep into the content. You know, talking about inside the learnings, we are aligning and we're thinking what we're going to be talking about, like what we learn. We're going to introduce our users here. So we're going to talk about their lives, aspirations. In challenge is like what we try to solve. So this is our conflict. Solution, how we solve it, how our user interact with it, and then implications, how our solution is helping the users, what are the benefits on emotional level. And then, yeah, as I was mentioning, this is something that is probably really hard to to talk about. But this is the moment when we start to connecting the dots, right? Like how we can nicely connect all of those chapters with bullet points, with a nice endings that make a seamless switch to the next chapter. And then we are looking for the ways how we can zip this also into the back, right? Like how all of the things connect all together. This is a beauty. This is the art. I think this is a really things that take practice, and usually we are doing as a team. With the team, you have a little more people to bring the good ideas, and I think also keeping that in this text format is also helpful to move faster. When we have a little more developed pieces, let's say the learning has the bullet points, the challenge has the bullet points, we start to thinking a little more about like what are the different type of media we would like to use, like which media are going to tell the best chapter of that story, right? Maybe for learning about the users, we're going to use the video. Maybe for the challenge, we are going to use some metaphor. There was one project that was working with the food client, and when they were talking about the challenge, they used the metaphor of a sandwich. So at the bottom there is a bread, so that's like kind of like the core of the challenge. There is a ham, which is another challenge, right? So to kind of like use the metaphor to make people really quickly grasp and like make them remember actually what they are trying to solve when the things get a little more complex. For the solution, maybe we're going to use a comic book. Like we also draw a short comic book to explain how the solution works in the end. And then lastly, really important thing that I think we are not doing enough is that we need to try our stories. Like you need to basically take a person that is not really familiar with the content of your project and tell them that story on that level. We are doing that at IDEO. We are inviting someone from another team just to sit down, walk them through the share for like half an hour. And that also, that these first times are also really helpful for us to, to see like, is the audience understanding what we are trying to say? How they react to the arc of the story? Is the story having a logical order and we are telling that really smoothly, or actually we have to go back and forth generally good stories takes time to grow. It's really hard to be right at the first time. And every time when you are trying that, it's going to get better and better. And then lastly, this is the moment when we start moving the slides. When we are confident that we have the right story, like this is the moment when we get visual and trying to elevate that through visuals. Lastly, last piece that I wanted to leave you with, it's a final piece of advice. It's a not one-time thing. I think it's all about iteration and trying to see how other people are telling the stories. That's why I was using the examples from the movies, because I found them really inspiring and they helped me to a little look at the different angle of telling the stories. Finding your way to tell a story. I think as storytellers, really important aspect is that we are authentic. Like, we should be feeling comfortable in the way we are sharing our stories, because audience can quickly detect that we are not ourselves, right? Like our personality has to match our story, and not set on one approach. So basically there are many different ways to tell the same story, right? But it's really important to try different things, because actually trying different things and not using them actually help us to become better storytellers. Instead of having one presentation, at the same time you are trying out 5, right? Which really helps you to sharpen your skills. Yeah, so that's actually all what I had to share for you. So thank you so much for your time. I hope it was interesting for you, and I'm really curious what you think about that. And I believe we have some time to do some Q&A. So whatever you're curious about, if you're curious about storytelling, let me know. Curious about the design, are you curious about China? I also have some perspective on it. And yes, I also will be doing some shares about communication in Ruta. So one of my ideas is to actually talk about communication in general as a designer, and more use like a design critic moment to tell about what I think we can do to make it the most out of it. So yeah, that's me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Piotr. I think everybody's virtually clapping. It's super awkward in Zoom. I think we still haven't figured it out. But thank you so much for this. I have 5 questions written down from while you were speaking. I know we have some more questions coming up right now. And I also know we have 10 minutes. So I'm going to try to go through all of them with short question, short answer. And if not, don't worry. We'll take them to Piotr. He will answer them and we will share them with you somewhere or another. So here we go. We have the first question from Roger about the steps you use to design and create a story. I know you already mentioned them, but he was making an emphasis in formal presentations. And we do have a lot in Latin America, like a formal client. So how do you approach storytelling there?
You know what, I just have to mention that, you know, maybe it's because of the IDEO, maybe it's because of the way we are perceived by our client, but we do have a permission to go into unexpected ways. And I could imagine that in other contexts, when you are the only one that believes in stories, it's a little harder. But I think you need to find your own ways how you can find the balance between what you believe in and what your organization gonna take, right? I think, to be honest, I think in all of the cases, you are able to bring the characters to your stories. You know, for example, right, to give you an example, we had a share about basically it's kind of like a share for the leaders at IDEO, and one person was presenting about growth of the people, right? And instead of doing like a really dry deck, he used a metaphor of a garden, that we are helping people do. We are kind of like the gardeners, and we are helping people to grow their skills and their passions, right? And I think that type of mindset of using metaphors to tell the story or introducing some characters, I think we can try to do that in many contexts. But I think I understand, I'm really realistic about that we just need to fit that into our organization. But I think there is still a space for us to do things differently. Maybe just to give like last example, my wife recently changed a job. She was also an IDOer, and she's working in a big organization right now. And actually, her storytelling skills, I really appreciated there. Which means that, you know, basically people are looking for those skills. They're looking for those stories. It's just that we need to break through our assumptions that it's never going to work out in my context. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the answer, Piotr. I'm going to go now to Javier's question. I like this one. It's about humor. So how important is humor when telling a story? And when is it a good timing to use it? Especially, again, in this context about formal. I know you have permission to do it, but how can we use it?
Yeah. No, I think you know, I think we have the permission, but at the same time, you know, it's not a stand-up comedy, right? Like there are only a couple of moments when we can do a joke. If the whole presentation is a joke, like nobody gonna treat us seriously, right? So the way I see it, it's probably, you know, the way I'm trying to use it, I'm usually trying to do it at the beginning, just for myself to be a little more comfortable with me presenting. So, you know, kind of like break my ice with the audience, right? So you know, trying to make a joke at the beginning about, you know, like how hot is the weather, or like, you know, like recent sport events or something. But I think we need to keep a little balance in that, and I totally agree that like I think the fun aspect is important. You know, sometimes it's really great to make people a little more focused when we are breaking the presentation and telling something funny. But I think we need to still keep the balance in that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that one. I'm going to go ahead to go to one question from Pau. I know we have more questions, but this one is very important, especially now we're in a context where everybody can be working remote with other countries or cultures. Pau says, what's your process when you have to adapt a story with audiences that are culturally different? Different cultures,
yeah, that's
different sectors, different countries.
Yeah, that's a great question, because, you know, I kind of have I should have a lot of experience with that, because I work in different places a lot. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think being I think the curiosity is really important here, like coming with the mindset that like, I don't know everything, but maybe I have people around that gonna know the answers, right? So when I'm more doing project here in China, like I'm always surrounded with people that actually know the culture. And to be honest, I avoided a lot of cultural, mistakes by actually sharing that story with the people from that culture. I don't want to go into the details, but it could go really bad if I would be telling some of the stuff. So basically, when I was mentioning that try your story, right? Try your story moment. Like, how about trying that with the people that understand the culture? Because I just want to be honest, I probably never going to fully understand the Chinese culture, right? But if I'm able to ask the people, what do you think? Do you think there is something in it, or I'm maybe too sensitive? Like, can I tell it this way? I think that's the best way for us to protect ourselves, right? Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you so much for that, Piotr. I am very, very aware that we have 5 minutes and we have to take a picture, and I have to tell you a little bit about the programs. Maffer is going to help me and you to gather all the questions, and I'm going to ask you here live with all the people here, if you could help me answering them tomorrow or today during the day, some of them, and we'll gather it and send them to you. So don't worry,
awesome.
Pasajeras, okay. We'll send you the answers of Piotr. Right now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna share my screen to present the last part of this event. Thank you so much for this. Obviously, Piotr, stay for the final picture. And I know we already know the answer for the talk we've listened right now, but can you apply storytelling in any kind of role? I would love to see the chat, a dot in the chat. What do you feel? What do you think? Can we apply storytelling everywhere? Great, I'm seeing the chat, a lot of dots in the chat, amazing. So with that in mind, I wanted to tell you a little bit about some programs that we have coming up. We have more programs. I know we have our ruta on digital product design. Piotr is going to be an inspiration shot there, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about this program. So right now, I am going to switch to Spanish. So Piotr, you can use the interpretation. Voy a cambiar al español. Muchas gracias a todos y todas. Uy, creo que estoy yo más bien en el traductor. Ya estamos, ahora sí, todo bien. Entonces, para terminar, les cuento que tenemos estas 3 rutas que empiezan, donde tenemos un módulo que es Storytelling, tenemos la ruta de Product Management que empieza el 5 de septiembre, entonces si ustedes vienen de un mundo en el cual están buscando conocer más sobre liderar equipos que crean o ya tienen productos digitales, como esta es una ruta que puede ser para ustedes. Tenemos la ruta de Growth Marketing para aprender a escalar los productos desde el punto de vista de estrategia. Y tenemos nuestra nueva ruta de Content Strategy que sale este 5 de septiembre, acerca nuevamente también de la parte estratégica cuando armamos contenido y esta combinación preciosa entre creatividad y data. Y quería ponerles este slide, de hecho no lo íbamos a poner, pero nos pareció súper importante contarles que todo esto se logra gracias a ustedes, pasajeros, pasajeras de las rutas y cursos, y también gracias a los profesionales que nos acompañan y que pueden contarnos sus historias, justamente ahora hablando de storytelling, y acá hay algunas de las personas que estarán con nosotros en estas rutas, para que ustedes puedan aprender y conectar de los talentos, ¿no? Al final aprender en colectivo es eso, es poder compartir todas estas historias y poder también cuestionarnos y comentar acerca de las nuestras también.